give a- So I give continuation to chapter 23 with the topic of obsession. In Akadek is discussing here, what can we do to avoid or to combat obsession? Ideally, would be prophylaxis to avoid it from happening. But once it happens, we have to treat it, we have to get rid of it. What can we do? And from everything that we had, and again, I have to remember every time that this is the middle book. So Kardec addresses the problem of obsessions of mediums. But the concept is exactly the same for the ostensive and for the general population. We are all at risk of engaging ourselves in obsessive processes. And again, as a reminder, let's make sure that whatever happened, let us not be the obsessor to others out there. We should be educated enough not to be obsessed to anyone. But once it happens, how to get rid of it? And if the greatest prophylaxis is education, the treatment method is education. Educate yourself morally, elevate yourself to a higher level. In this process, you not only you help yourself, but you help the one that is next to you, that you learn from your experience, that you learn from your example. In the cases of mediums, in particular of mediums of psychography, it would be wise to stop writing for a while. You know, it's while you're going through that process, you are at a very high risk of producing unwanted, so to say, psychographies. So in many instances, it would be wise to take a break from writing until you feel that you are in better control of your mediumship and not allowing an obsessor or anyone else to use your mediumship for their own advantage. And 215 on, he will continue the same topic. And let's read so I can discuss.
Okay. 250. Therefore, in simple obsession, there is only annoyance and no real danger to the mediums who do not allow themselves to be deceived, since they cannot be misled. However, precisely the opposite occurs with fascination, for then the domination of these spirits over their victims is limitless. The only thing to do is to convince their victims that they have been deceived and to regress their obsession to the degree of simple obsession. This is not always easy and is sometimes impossible. The ascendancy of such spirits over their victims is such that it makes them deaf to all reasoning, and they could even reach the point of doubting the judgments of science when such spirits commit some blatant scientific heresy. As we have already stated, those who are fascinated normally do not take advice very well. Criticism upsets and irritates them, and they intensely dislike those who do not share in their admiration. To suspect their obsessor is almost blasphemy to them, which is exactly what the Spirit wants, to make them kneel before its words.
Thanks. It's good. Let's go here because a lot in this.
Mhm.
And so Kardec, he talks about simple obsession is only unannounced, announced, and he goes away from that very quickly. So you know that I'm being obsessed. You know that every time that I try to do something, there is a annoying mosquito in my ears making noise and try to disrupt me, but I cannot do it because I am stronger than this mosquito. Period. Done. I can overpower its intention, its energies, and I can go ahead and do my work. I do not allow this announcer to be something that stops me from doing my work. And then it goes to the case of fascination. And he makes a very strong, very strong statement. And it says, domination of these spirits over the victims is limitless. I think this word limitless is extremely strong. Kardec's making a very powerful statement over here that once we become fascinated, that spirit really has a control of us, a domination over us that it's limitless. And to convince the victim that they are being that they are victims, actually they're being victimized by another spirit is extremely difficult. But the process of recovery, you can only start once that medium or that individual being obsessed recognize that it is happening. It's sort of over here. The only thing to do is to convince the victims that they are being deceived. Because how can I treat someone who does not belong there, he or she is sick? How can you start the process of detoxification of an alcoholic who says categorically that I am not an alcoholic, that I do not have a dependence? You guys are all wrong. The whole family is saying he has a drinking problem. He cannot hold a job because of alcohol, getting to the work drunk, cannot maintain a relationship because of being drunk. But everybody's wrong. Only him is right. He's not dependent. He does not have a drinking problem. If you use that analogy, and it's much easier to understand, fascination has that category. The guy just doesn't believe that he's is undergoing any process of obsession. Everybody else is wrong. He knows best, or she knows best. How do you treat someone like that? It's basically impossible, right? You can only initiate the process of recovery when that individual understands that he needs to go that process of recovery. And the goal would be to convert that fascination to a simple obsession, which is much easier to say than to do. And actually, to do Kardec's telling us that it's extremely difficult. And the more well-educated in terms of intellectual abilities, or even in understanding of spiritism itself, is the medium, the more difficult it is, because that person with tremendous intellectual abilities will be able to counter-argue, will be able to find in its intellectuality reasons to support its decision, to support its idea that he or she is not being obsessed. It is easier for someone who is not so well, not so clever, not someone do not understand of the thing well, that perhaps we can point things to them and they cannot counter-argue with us. And this process of the fascination, as I called fascination, can be so strong that they put that spirit in a pedestal that you know that the victim will not accept any criticism against the work that spirit is doing, against what it's saying, what it's right, and to go against it is almost a blasphemy, or it is for them a blasphemy. And again, why is that? We explained the last time that the way that they will get a medium to be so deeply fascinated is exactly by going along the pathway of I am from the good, I am from Christ, I'm with Christ, I am one of the superior spirits who come to make the necessary corrections so spiritism can do its full job, and then you have been chosen because you're the only one who truly understand what Spiritism is all about. Unfortunately, your colleagues have been misled by false informations, but you're gonna help us to correct this process. Now, being I so proud, so full of myself, I accept that position. Say, well, so let's fix spiritism for the goodness of spiritism. I have this superior spirit who is leading me, this superior spirit who is up by this side by side with Jesus, and we are going to fix this. How do you, once you absolutely buy that idea, how can we change the mind of that individual? Especially for someone who's so well educated, intellectually, of course, um, in the topic of religiosity, religion, spiritism, it becomes extremely, if not impossible, to the point that Kardec, you later say, you better off just leave it alone. Questions, comment? And one of the things that makes comments that I think important is that those individuals, they go as far as to defy science. They go against sciences in that process of fascination. And to go against science is perhaps one of the most ignorant things that we can do, because science needs to prove, or most science prove. If you go against, you go against the reason, goes against the obvious. So once you start see that mediums are right things that goes against or to challenges scientific topics that it has been confirmed that it's factual, then you right there and then realize that there is a serious problem going on.
Yeah, the point that you made that the more well prepared intellectually, the more difficult it is to deal with. It's such an important point, right? But
Yeah,
really, it's what happens, right?
Yeah, because very often when we know, we can see that the person is going through a problem, but we don't have arguments to deal with that person because they are so well prepared that they counter-argue us, and we have to just allow them go in the wrong that they are, because we cannot like dialogue with them at their level. They are so well prepared. Which is almost like a contradiction, right? And you say, how could these people undergo this kind of processes? If they are so well prepared, if they are so smart, how can it be fooled? And it's that point that you see the importance of the morality to grow together with intellectuality. Because when intellectual goes so far ahead, that problem is established right then and there.
Yeah. And again, right? Normally, you find these people in positions of leadership, right? Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And
unfortunately, yes. Because they are so well prepared, so well educated, they understand, they know so much that they have a group of followers, and very often because of their eloquence, they can attract even more followers, and becomes a very, very difficult and dangerous problem. All right, let's finish this stuff.
Okay. One of these spirits exerted an extraordinary fascination over a person of our acquaintance. We evoked it, and after some boastfulness, and seeing that it could not fool us as to its identity, it confessed that it had assumed a false name. We asked it why it had been abusing this individual so much, and it responded with these words, which clearly reveal the character of this kind of spirit. I looked for a man I could, I could look, I looked for a man that I could handle. I have found him and I shall remain with him. But if we enlighten him about you, he will make you go away. Well, we'll just see about that. Since there is no one as blind as those who do not want to see, then when we realize the futility of all attempts to open the eyes of those who are fascinated, it is best to simply leave them alone with their delusions. We cannot heal those who, being ill, persist in their illness and find comfort in it. Mm.
Yeah. So I think we already covered this part over here. The spirits who fascinate us, especially mediums, they will have an agenda. They are after something. It means that maybe something personal towards that medium, or it may be a much greater agenda that they require um, a vehicle to pass its ideas, to pass its thoughts through others. And once they find that target, they will lock to this target. And in order to assist these individuals, these mediums, they would have to first recognize that there is a problem that requires correction. If you do not recognize that, it becomes impossible, to the point that Kardec says, they just let them on their own, right? We cannot heal those who being ill persist in the illness and find comfort in it, but not quite. And even he will, Kardec will following up here that we're not just going to abandon those individuals and let them be on their own. We know that it's at that point pretty much impossible to treat them directly, but we have to do things indirectly to try to help those individuals. And that's pretty much what we're going to to discuss in the following readings now. Go ahead,
You'll take continue.
please.
251. Corporeal subjugation almost always deprives those who are obsessed of the energies needed for them to gain control over the evil spirit. This is why the intervention of third persons is required, who act through magnetism or through the force of their own will. When those who are obsessed do not cooperate, then these persons must gain ascendancy over the spirit themselves. However, since this ascendancy can only be moral, it can be exercised only by persons who are morally superior to the spirit, and their power will be in proportion to such moral superiority, because then they can impose themselves on the spirit, who is obligated to submit to them. That is why Jesus has such great power to expel what were at the time called demons, that is, evil obsessive spirits.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
So as I said, we cannot go and help these individuals directly. They don't see a problem. Everything's fine. On the contrary, they are doing good for the humanity. What can we do to help them somewhat? So we have to work and help them in the form more indirectly. And Kardec brings the topic of corporeal subjugation, which basically it means that you have to remember that this physical body or this medium, it requires energies to do its work. It requires energies to do the work of mediumship. It requires, and if now this physical body is doing what it has to do for the medium, but is also doing what it needs to do for this obsessor, there is a tremendous amount of energy being expended there. This obsessor is kind of a parasite, on a tree that's sucking energies for him or herself to reach its objective, right? So the medium may be somewhat depleted of energies and in need of some replenishment. What is it? What can we do? Provide passes. Okay, and a third person is required. What is the third person? A pass giver. And now we're bringing the topic now to spiritism of today. What's being practiced today? I believe at the time of Kardec, the concept of passes were not so fully done. It was more of magnetism, was still being a magnetizer to provide energies. But now we extend that to to giving passes, in which the pass giver donate his or her own energy, magnetism, in association with the more important spiritual energies coming um, from the spiritual world by capable, knowledgeable spirits who is able to provide some energies to that person being obsessed. Now, these energies will help on both in the physical sense, so to say, to replenish those energies, to recharge each one of the chakras, so to say, but hopefully also will give some help on allowing this obsessed person to have a better, clear vision, or perhaps even to create a little degree of separation between the two perispirits, so that that medium or that person being obsessed can have a little break, and during that little break, will have a little bit of clear mind to think for himself without the bombardment of energies of that obsessor. One thing that you always say here, um, the the problem of obsess is definitely a moral problem, right? It's almost always a problem of pride. And spirits who make use of the pride, of the vanity, of the avarice of others cannot be unenlightened, a morally educated spirit. It has to be an inferior spirit, morally speaking. Maybe very intellectually bright, and usually they are. If they are to convince really smart people to behave like idiots, is because they are very capable. But morally, naturally, they are not apart. So in order to assist those spirits, both the obsessed and the obsessor, it needs to be done by someone with some moral qualities, at least a little bit above those two, okay? So Kardec says clearly it can be exercised only by persons who are morally superior to the spirit, and their power will be in proportion to such moral superiority, because then they can impose themselves on the spirit. We always say that there is this hierarchy in the spiritual world, or this hierarchy among God's spirits, that goes through moral qualities. And that is kind of imperative and irresistible, that the more evolved spirit has that authority over the less evolved spirits that is natural and pretty much automatic and completely irresistible. And that's why, of course, Kardec mentions, that's why with Jesus, there was not even a question. Like Kardec, Jesus could remove any process of obsession by only his presence, basically. And if at that time they were called the demons, now we can call them obsessing spirits, because he eliminates the thought that those spirits were condemned to evil forever, but calling them obsessive spirits, we give them its proper place as someone who is morally ill but can be treated, can be re-educated, and will return to the pathway of goodness eventually. Questions, comments?
Elmo,
Yep.
um, I understand that, usually the answer is it's a case by case, but since we mentioned that those people they are, being fascinated, they develop, the intellectual side and had usually work in positions of leadership. So one can assume that for at least a period of time they done a good work, and they were in the right path. And I understand also that, the text says that if the person doesn't want to be helped, there's nothing they can do. But we study on different situations and books and everything that some people they don't deserve it, they don't want it, but they still get the help that they need. And I believe that people like that, not that I believe, I think they believe like that, they for the period of time they work in the right path, they kind of have a merit, let's put it that way. So my question would be, why sometimes those people go in that dark path and just lost themselves in a way that sometimes at least look that is irreparable? Once when we look the totality of what they've done, and again merit, and people they love, then not only on this side but also on the other side, they could interfere on that process, and it looks like that nothing is done.
Okay, so that is what's most intriguing and most sad, perhaps, is exactly what you mentioned. That individuals with tremendous ability, intellectual ability, the deep connoisseur of many topics, strong influencers. They have the ability to captivate a great mass followers. Now, very far from being perfect beings. And let's suppose that I am an obsessor, or I am a evil spirit in the spiritual world that want to mislead a large group of people. Who am I going to target? Or do I have to target someone who can deliver my message to a large group of people? Right? And the part that is extremely fascinating and hard to understand is exactly what you mentioned, how these people become victims of these processes, being so capable. And indeed, we see individuals produce beautiful, beautiful, fantastic work and have the merit because of that beautiful work. So let's say that, let's use an impossible case. So you don't think of, no point of fingers at anyone. Let's say that you've all become obsessed now, and you start to go with some crazy ideas out there. Does the crazy ideas now, does this process of fascination now derails all the wonderful work that he has done prior to this? Naturally not, right? the good books produced, psychography of other spirits, are still good books. All the charity that he produced for thousands of kids are still wonderful charity for thousands of people. If now he undergoes this process of fascination and is doing crazy stuff out there, does not diminish what he has done in the past. And what he has done in the past put him in the position to merit all kind of assistance that he can possibly get. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the case for anyone else. I'm using default because everybody say, oh, that's impossible, and I agree. But nothing is impossible, but it's very unlikely, so to say, all right? But anyone else who has done wonderful work in a small spirited center in a small town in the south of Bahia with population 2,000, right? Is doing good work. But that good work does not go away because now this individual enters the process of fascination and start doing silly stuff. He still has the merit for what he has done. But as we just mentioned over here, in that deep process of fascination, it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to assist him or her directly. We need to go in a more indirect form. And he or she will receive all the help that he or she can get, that he or she will benefit in a form in a more indirect term. You have a second part of the question. It's very important also. There was a good question I forget. Could you bring that back for me?
I was trying to get a sense of how, I mean, with everything they've done and people they love and guardian angels and, you know, the spirits that work with that person during the time that was doing a good work, how come they do not interfere? Because, you know, the spirit obsessing, and for the person here, I believe it's a little bit harder because, you know, you're not seeing what's coming. But for the spirits on the other side, they can see everything that's happening. And we studied before that even though there's spirits that they don't want the help, but they still get the help because that's what's best for them. So the question was, how come with all the merit and all the assistance from the other side, these people still go down on that dark path in a ways that seems that there's no turning back. There's no
Free will.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
then again,
Yeah.
that's why I mentioned that some people that, you know, we study on the, to make simple, on the no solar, the lady that didn't want it to be on the no solar, and then she was still there, and even though she didn't want to. So we seen through mediumship opinions in different books and whatever, people they are rescued, they don't want to. So my question is,
Why?
since this person kind of don't want to, but why don't just, you know, interfere and don't let things go, you know, south the way sometimes it goes? That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Okay. If I recall the case of this lady in the spirit in Oslo, it's not that she didn't want to be in Oslo, and she didn't want to comply with the rules and regulations of Oslo, but she want to be there. She want to be there at her own leisures, at her own, without following the rules and regulations of the place. I want to be here, but I want to be here on my own way and do my own things. And no, Oslo has rules. You have, you have to do this to get you a bonus hours. Otherwise, they're not come. You cannot pick them up on trees and kind of thing. So it's different. But the spirits that João said the word, spirits that or the good spirits intervene in a more drastic way. You don't want it, but now that's it. Is individuals who have gone down to a level of distress, of problem, they does not have any more rights to exercise the free will. They have lost that right. That's why I always state to spirits, if you remember, it's leadership meetings. Free will is not free. Free will is very expensive and high maintenance. If you abuse it consistent to a point, it's taken away from you and somebody gonna act in your behalf. Those are the cases in which those interferences are done so drastically. And one of the reasons, or perhaps the main reason, that we have to wait to get to that level is because at this point there is not much learning taking place. Because if I'm doing for you, you're not learning. You learn when you do it. You understand? So it's only a very final situation, so to say, when the guy went to the bottom of the bottom, that let him take away his free will, because he's only going to get himself in more trouble, and we exhausted all the opportunities to let him or her to do on her own and assisting her, then now we're going to have to do it. In that case, there is not much learning going on. It's almost as I'm going to take away your rights a little bit here now. We're going to help for a while until you begin to understand things a little bit better. Then I start to reintroduce your rights again, and then you're going to go through the process of learning again. Those are the very exceptional cases, which is not the case with most of the cases of fascinations. Okay, you want to allow the individual to exercise that right that he has, that free will. You want to exercise that, just exercise that intelligence to be able to open his ears to listen to reason from someone else, and start to form a kind of protection against those kind of vaccination on his or her own. That's a very important learning process right then and there. To find himself that what is the target that this obsess is finding in me? Is my pride? Is my desire to be on top of a pedestal, to be recognized as the savior of the world? What is it in me that attracts those individuals? When I do that, I am learning, I'm perfecting myself. And the spirits will give us all the opportunities for me to do that exercise of using my free will, my intelligence, to improve myself, to not become a target of those individuals. Do you understand the difference right there?
Yes.
So, it's like someone who requires to be taken away from society because it's a danger for society, for someone who is making bad choice over there and is hurting himself, but is not killing anyone. Right? Well, at the moment they start killing someone, then you have to be taken away from society. But as long as you go over there and you just continue hurting yourself and shooting yourself on the foot, we hope that you will learn 41 mistakes. You learn that you learn from the pain, from the suffering that you causing to yourself, and start making corrections. Because that's a learning process that you conquered. You did it yourself. Because to expect that the spirits come here and say, oh no, you have the merit, I'm gonna protect you, I'm not gonna let you learn from this horrible vice that you have, that is your vanity, that is your greed, that is your pride, that you hide so well that nobody can see, as everybody thinks you are perfect. But now you have to deal with the consequences of carrying this vice, of sustaining the vice for quite some time. Again, it's a consequence. and you have to deal with your consequences.
Yeah, because for me, it's I kind of for example, as a society, we don't do that way. We don't work that way. For example, I'm gonna give an example that you always does. It's very simple. A drug dealer. You have the drug dealer and you have the addict. So the drug dealer is kind of the obsessor. There's the influence, and the person likes it and continues to use the drugs and just going down dark path, doesn't see it, and he seduces and so on. As a society, the way we behave, we either interfere with the drug addict, pulling him or her away of the influence, or we attack the drug dealer, try to prevent them to do whatever they're doing. But it seems that in a spiritual way, if we act like the spiritual, like the spiritual plane does, we should just leave the drug addict, figure out until it's pretty much, ruins everything. So it's like two ways to act upon a situation on a physical and a spirit that is to me is different. So that's why sometimes I don't understand why the spiritual don't act upon it and try to prevent until the person gets on its feet and try to do something. But again, I mean, I'm just trying to understand how it works. That's all.
Yeah, you remind me of what is the name of the old person who was angry with God because our justice here is better than the God's justice. Forget his name. You know what I'm talking
Orlando.
about. Orlando, yes. Yeah, we do a much better job here making justice than God does.
No, I'm not saying that.
No,
I'm
no, you're
just trying
not.
to
You just remind me.
understand.
You just remind me of him. No, I know you're not. Absolutely not. But that was his big argument, his big fight with God. That God need to learn with us how to make justice. You are right. When we want to get a quick fix to a much bigger problem, you take the drug dealer out of the street, you put the drug abuser in a correction facility and whatever. Doing that, you may kind of stop the cough, but we don't kill the cancer in the lungs that is making the guys to cough. Divine spirituality seeks to eliminate the cancer and not do a quick fix, stop the coughing, but the cancer continues to grow in the lungs. Do you understand that?
Yeah, now you're getting something.
Okay, so the problem that the good spirituality wants to treat is to eliminate the causes that lead that person to become a victim of obsessors, who is basically to try to eliminate that vice and transform that vice into virtue. And that's why it's a long process, and that's why you don't want to do a quick fix, because in the quick fix there is not much learning taking place. It will happen if it comes to that, but the good spiritualities give all the opportunities to that spirit to treat the cancer, him or herself, doing the right thing, with assistance, of course, always with assistance. We're going to see that here soon. Because now that person will never be obsessed again, and here I dare say never, once he eliminates that vice. And that drug dealer or that obsessed, once it educates itself and sees that it's not cool to be oppressing others, he will or she will never do that again once it educates itself morally and overcome that vice. Then the problem is resolved. I take the drug dealer and put him in jail, and he stayed there for the time that he needs to be. Society gets better. Once he gets out, he's going to do the same thing again because it did not educate him or herself. Continues being the same beast. In the process of the good spirituality is to eliminate the beast and create a human being. And that takes time.
Okay, now I think I get it. It's because when you were when you explained, I was like, this is like there's several ways to approach a problem. Sometimes you have to see big picture. Sometimes you have to see a quick fix, and the spirituality has to navigate. Then it falls what are when I begin to say it's a case by case in order to give the appropriate antidote, if you can call it like that, to the person overcome whatever challenge is facing.
And I agree that the quick fix may be necessary, that come to a point that you have to help the guy to stop coughing because it's really creating other problems, but it does not treat the cancer. Right? And we're not treating the cancer, not the coughing. If it's become necessary to do a quick fix, yes, it may take place, but understand there is a quick fix, it's temporary. And very often, the best therapy is allow that person to deal with the consequence of its bad choices, because at the end, it's a choice, to learn from that bad, why that was a bad choice and how to correct it. Because again, we're not treating that that reincarnation, that personality of that reincarnation. We're treating the eternal spirit to be free of that problem through its eternal life. And once you remove that vice, that's removed. You don't have that anymore.
Thank you.
So that's a very good point that you bring. If it becomes necessary, quick intervention here and there, let's do it. But understand that we are not really resolving the problem here. We are just kind of putting a little band-aid in the wound, but the wound is still there.
Yeah, because that, I mean, again, then it falls on a case by case. But there's people when you take him or her from the streets, put in a clinic, 6 months later, they overcome, boom, boom, that's it. They're, and some people, they just fall right back in where they were.
Right.
So you never know what's gonna work, and you do whatever they, in this case, the spirituality, feel like will be the best chance in the long run for that particular person at the moment in time.
And for whom does it work?
Say it again.
For whom the rehab works?
Yeah, is that a question?
Yes.
The
Well, I'll
rehab.
answer. It works. It was for those who recognize that it was a problem. There was a need to go to that rehab. Was agreeable that it need that help, and act. And it's not going to work for the one that's they have pushed me inside this jail. I'm going to stay here for 6, 7 months, but once I'm out, I'm going to be on my own again and do my own things again. It's not going to work. So the same thing with the spirituality. They will intervene more aggressive. Those who are able to receive that help was something that is say always in our spiritual center, right? If you are here now because you're ready to receive help.
Got it.
So let's just finish this very last paragraph.
Okay. At this point, we can only offer some general advice, since there is no physical process or formula or especially any sacramental word which has the power to expel obsessing spirits. What is sometimes lacking in those who are obsessed is sufficient fluidic power. In this case, the magnetic action of a good magnetizer can provide them with effective help. Moreover, it is always a good idea to obtain, through trustworthy mediums, the counsels of a high order spirit or their guardian angel.
Okay. So remember that in that beginning over here, Kardec says corporeal subjugation, talking about the amount of energy required that is expended in the process of that subjugation. And Kardec says over here that those individuals suffering those subjugation, they are in a depleted state of energies, okay? And what can we help, since there is no physical process, there is no medic, there is no pharmacology, there is not physical therapy that he can do that will help this case. And he targeted exactly at exorcism over here, right? Or especially any sacramental words which has the power to expel obsessing spirits. This, you know, the word exorcism doesn't work. Basically, that's what Kardec's telling us here. What can we do? We can replenish that energy through passes, which at that time, again, I don't think passes was a word or something being done, but magnetism was already known, and Kardec was already a student of magnetism. But today we can, in this process of disobsession, you start with help that obsessed person by providing passes, replenish those energies that will again act not only by replenishing the energy for that person to restore some kind of good flow of energy to those centers of energies or passes, but may also have an effect of create a little bit of separation, create a little aura of protection for that obsessed to have a little bit of ability to see things more clearly and use reason a little bit better. I'll rather stop here because they're going to stop on a different topic and we just have 5 minutes. Do you have any more questions? So anyway, it's obvious that the process of subjugation, of fascination, can only happen to any one of us. Let's put it this way. But it will happen for those of us who deals with the problem of a very strong pride that can be very well misguided. I mean, I'm smart enough to hide my vices to the best that I can from everyone else. Why should I expose my vices to everyone else? Why should I expose my vanity and my pride to everyone else? I'm going to disguise it to the best of my abilities, but I have it. And if someone really wants to poke and find, they will find because it's there, right? So those individuals that we find, how is it possible that X, Y is going to this process? And I'm not only talking about big names, which you could say big names, which I'm not going to say big names here, not to put anyone in a bad situation. But all of us could be victimized because we all carry vices that those spirits will target. Naturally, those in a higher position, in a position of influence a good number of people, they will be more targeted. Those who are doing a good work, they will be really targeted, except because they are doing a good work, and there is a bunch of people out there who wants to derail that good work. So it's extremely important that the higher position that you get, that you become more and more of a target, and it really needs to be extra vigilant and extra careful with your thoughts, with your intentions and everything else, to not become a victim of those individuals. And from our part over here, to really pray and send vibration to those individuals to be in control of themselves and not allow those little vices to become a big, big detractor on the pathway of progress. Okay? Carol, you do a prayer, final prayer for us? Carol is muted. You do it, Sarida?
Yes, I'll do it, of course.
Thank you.
And as we come to the end of our meeting tonight, again with gratitude, we thank you, dear Lord, our spiritual benefactors, our guardian angels that have contributed in assisting our teachers in the continuation of enlightening us and guiding us with all that we need. And now with this chapter of obsession, helping us to understand the importance, to understand the differences and how to help and guide. We are thankful for that, dear Father. May we continue again throughout the week with our studies, meeting each other through this Zoom, these new technologies that allow us to continue our studies. And with that, we're so grateful. We thank you. May you guide all those that are in need, dear Father, especially for our new year that is coming around. May we have a blessed year. Help those that are all in need, dear Father, for the hospitals, for those undeveloped countries, for those that have lost their homes and jobs, dear Lord. May you help them and guide them as we do our part with our prayers and with charity, because without charity there is no salvation, dear Lord. And with that, we're so grateful for to understand. Thank you. Thank you for the teachers. Thank you for the SGNY and all spirit centers throughout the land. Thank you. May we have a beautiful year of learning and evolving, surrounding us with spiritism. We thank you, dear Lord. And with that in mind, we ask permission to close our meeting tonight. So be it.
So be it.